Hey y'all, it's Yewande the Resolute Rose here. Happy Saturday. This is the first July Saturday Selah, and so this is Saturday Selah number 5. I am in my studio with an unfinished painting that I decided to throw up because I don't have much in my studio right now, and I'll tell you why. This past week, I started an artist residency at an arts organization in Washington, D.C. called Captiol Hill Arts Workshop. And what that means is for the next 3 weeks, I have the time and space to either explore a new art technique or something new within my art, or I'm able to expand on an idea that maybe I want to build out a bit more that I've worked on in the past. And so it's really, really cool. I'm so extremely grateful to have like the time and space to really dedicate to my craft outside of the home where my usual distractions might be and snacks and TV and things like that. And so it's been an outstanding experience so far. And so I wanted to spend today kind of reflecting on my experience so far, but also reflecting on, I'm always in my like deep bag, some of the realizations I've had about myself and just my creative practice, etc. So I one of the first things that you do when you have an artist residency is you come up with a proposal. What will you be doing? What will the work that you're creating? What are you trying to accomplish? And so I decided. It took me a while. In my initial proposal, I tossed around, or I proposed a collection around the idea of home. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I was able to explain it in a way that they understood that, I wanted to explore the people, places, spaces that we call home and how that impacts us. And so as the week started, I have 3 weeks to make magic happen. And so I started to think, like, what am I going to do? And so I started to think about what home means, like, for me personally. And I started to recognize that home for me, it's not necessarily a place. It's much more of a space for me. And I talk about coming home to myself a lot. So I pay a lot of attention to like just the language, the words that I say, because of course words mean things. But I thought about like coming home to myself. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how can I, do something with that in 3 weeks? I'm gonna keep pushing this 3 weeks because it sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not. I have a showcase at the end, so I'll provide those details as well. But what I really, really returned to was my collection. One of the pieces from my collection in 2021, my Restorative Joy collection. And the centerpiece of that collection is this huge piece of Black girls kind of just like, they're gesturing and being silly and cute and spunky. And I decided to title that particular piece, We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. And it's really funny because ever since finishing that painting and naming it, I've come across the saying, we are the ones we've been waiting for, more times than one. And I felt like in the moment, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I didn't know where it just dropped into my mind. And so it's not like I had just seen it and decided to, swipe it. There was something subconscious. I know I've heard it before because now I know, of course, that it's not an original idea from me, but after it came to me, I started to look into the title, and it came out that it came to me that Alice Walker actually has a whole book of poems called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For, and she's one of my favorite authors. And I'm like, oh my god, or writers. And I was like, you know what, this alignment is everything. But yeah, so that particular painting, I feel like is very representative of me and my childhood, and just the energy that I had and the exuberance that I had, especially when I was young. Young being like pre-puberty, pre-middle school, because that's when things got a little iffy. But I think about that version of myself a lot. And so when I talk about returning home to myself, more times than not, I'm talking about the youthful, playful, exuberant, unapologetic, tenacious version of myself that was unadulterated by the world and all of the world's muck. So, anyway, I decided to use that particular piece as the inspiration for the work that I'll be doing at Captiol Hill Arts Workshop. And after some time, I've come up with another kind of mini series that's really diving deeper into my experience with just as a Black girl. I think that we see a lot of representation of we see a lot of different types of representation, but I think that there's always room for joy coupled with Blackness and youth and innocence. And so the title for this particular series or collection is Where Joy Most Revels. And it's interesting that the way that I'm able to name my work, name my collections, because I'll just fixate on something. Something will drop into my mind and I'll fixate on it until until I'm able to like come to the conclusion as to why I can't get this out of my head. And so the word revel, where joy revels, that kept popping into my mind. And I was like, okay, so how can I title this? Revel in my joy, revel in the joy. I was tossing things around. And then I came across a line from Shakespeare's play Hamlet, where joy most revels, grief doth follow, or something like that. But where joy most revels, that really clicked for me. And I was like, this is it. This is the title. And I love how in that one line, both joy and grief were mentioned, because I think that a lot of the reflections on my joy are immediately kind of I also think about, those I prize my joy so much because I know what pain feels like. I know what the grief feels like. And so I really try to revel in those joyful moments. And so for the next 3 weeks, I will be kind of creating new works that I want to feel like short stories. I love to read, I love to write, and so I want my paintings to feel like short stories that are kind of a look into my childhood, to my experience. It's not going to be a bunch of paintings of me, but I will be, one of the muses, which is interesting. But also, my daughter, my niece, my sisters, my loved ones. You'll also see some familiar faces, some of their faces, or gestures, or what have you, in the work that I'm completing. And so I'm really excited now that I know like what I'm doing. It's week one. Week one is gone, which is crazy, but also exciting. This weekend I'll be in my home studio with, the few materials that I have left here, getting some stuff together in preparation for when I go back next week. But I also wanted to discuss just my experience just with a residency so far. I've done residencies before, but never, it's more so like an artist. The residency I did in the past was more so like as an artist in residence, meaning that my artwork was in a space. We had an art show. Like, it was work that was already created, that was on display. It wasn't necessarily me having time and space to create something new. And so this is my first experience like this. And what I've been able to do in the past week, I feel like is leaps and bounds above, maybe what I've been able to do in the past like 3 months. There's something to be said about having a separate time, separate space, and a level of accountability to create work. And it's not necessarily pressure, because I don't like putting pressure on my artwork, but it's like you have, like, this is your space, your time to fill. So how will you fill it? And so yesterday when I left the residency, when I left Chaw, I was just kind of reflecting, and I was like, yo, I was in such a flow today. I was kind of playing around with techniques. I got my first large scale sketch done, and I really got into a flow, and I am 1,000% convinced that me creating is my meditation, because my nervous system slows down to the point where like my breathing is so just, I don't even know how to describe it, but like my breath is different. The way that I move is different. And yesterday I spent most of the time finalizing plans, gessoing canvases, hanging up some of the fabrics that I had already gessoed to start sketching on. But I had my music going. There's like a little, the studio space, and I was just going for it, and it felt so natural. Like if ever I doubted whether that is what I need to be doing, I feel like, my experience so far, just having the time and space to really focus and hone in, has just filled me to the point where I know that I don't need to be doing anything else. I don't need to be doing anything. Like this is my zone of genius. I have a couple of zones of excellence, but this is absolutely my zone of genius. And I'm excited to see what comes from it. And then I'm also a podcast junkie, and so I won't be sharing an affirmation this week, but I wanted to share the podcast that I came across yesterday when I was in the car headed, driving back from DC, because it's kismet, but it's also like, it makes sense. So you might have remembered from, I think, week 1 or 2 of Saturday Selah, where I mentioned a book that I read called Life I Swear by Chloe Dulce Louvoiseau. Well, she has a podcast, y'all. And the podcast episode that I came across was with a woman named Hannah Tall. She's from the Loveland Foundation, which provides, residencies and fellowships and mental health resources specifically for Black women and girls. And, that's right up my alley. And the title of the podcast that caught me. The title of the podcast was called We Are the Ones. I was like, you know what? I almost threw my shoe, but I was driving. And so I was like, oh, I have to listen to this. What? And so that is my recommendation for this week. It's not necessarily an affirmation, but that episode filled me so much. And if you have any questions or want to hear more about what community care looks like, feels like, about the Loveland Foundation and the work that they do, I would highly, highly recommend listening to that episode. One of the questions that Chloe asked Hannah in the episode was around what does we are the ones we've been waiting for, what does that mean to you? And so I kind of posed the question to myself, because here I am with this painting. The title was dropped into my head, so I'm like, all right, well, what does it mean to me? Like, I keep returning to moments from my childhood, or highlighting Black youth and Black girlhood and things like that as it relates to me as a Black woman. And I'm like, we are the ones we've been waiting for. I think that, to me, what that means is we don't have to wait for someone to come save us. Everything we need is everything we have, whether it's within us, whether it's around us. We are surrounded and almost engulfed in every single resource that we need. And I'm not going to quote it all the way. It's one of my affirmations that I just have, like one of my personal affirmations. It's not necessarily an affirmation for the week, but I'll share it. It's, the universe is teeming with everything I will ever need. I am within the universe, and the universe is within me. I wholeheartedly believe that. Like, we are the ones we've been waiting for means that we are the fullness that we desire. We are the expansiveness that we seek. We are the love, the peace, the hope, the joy, all of the things. We being, us individuals, but also we being community. And I was just so excited to listen to that episode and be like, what? Oh my God, they're speaking my language. Like, let me look more into the Loveland Foundation and start listening to Life I Swear podcast more regularly. But this was, I guess, maybe kind of a stream of consciousness. I just wanted to reflect on my first week with my residency, kind of the inspiration being a painting that I completed called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. How, everything was I kind of got that nod, that supernatural nod when I listened to that podcast, also entitled We Are the Ones, and they were speaking about the quote, We are the ones we've been waiting for. But also to encourage everyone, because I'm always going to have an encouraging word, to find the thing that really makes you come alive. Because if this is just week one of my residency and kind of my introspection that's come from it, I'm so excited, not just for the work that will come from it, but also the internal like follow-ups and things that will come up for me. Because I don't know, it's just different when you're able to remove the distractions and flow and really get into a flow state. And so if anybody is local to the DMV, my showcase will be July 22nd at Captiol Hill Arts Workshop from 6 to 8. If you follow my social media, I'll be doing a better job of chronicling my experience there and sharing details. If you're on my email list, of course, you'll get the details as well. And I think that's it. I just wanted to come in and kind of reflect with you guys. And I don't remember if I've said it already, but this week I'm drinking Sojourn by Adjourn Tea House, and I think it was her Juneteenth blend. It's really good. There's lavender and lemon. I've drank it before, but today I felt like drinking it again. It's a beautiful Saturday. I like overcast days. So yeah, drinking Sojourn. I recommend listening to the Life I Swear podcast, particularly the episode entitled We Are the Ones with Hannah Tall from the Loveland Foundation. And I wish you all a beautiful weekend. Happy Saturday.